All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us at the April meeting of the Georgia Game Developers Association. Thank you very much to the Art Institute of Atlanta for hosting us here. My name is Andrew Greenberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Game Developers Association. Usually Sarah Massagey, our Atlanta chapter president, would be heading up this part with announcements and the like, but she was unable to join us this evening. But our next meeting, she has asked me to inform you, will be with Friendly Humans. There is a company called Friendly Human in the Krog Marketplace that will be hosting us, but our presenters will be Dragon Army. They're an excellent mobile developer here. Their last title cracked the top 25 on Apple in no time, and they're going to be giving us a post-mortem of how they made that happen. I wish I'd had more announcements. I'm sure she would have had plenty more. But we're going to go ahead and move into what I believe all of you are here for, which is the Game Audio Shootout. Yeah. So we've done this, I think this is our fourth time doing it. And every time, only one or two people die. No, we get to hear some really great audio from some new people, and we make some excellent introductions for folks looking to have their audio work involved in the game industry. When we talk about game audio, we are talking about the whole spectrum. We're talking about the music. We're talking about voiceover. We're talking about sound effects. We're talking about interface noises and so on. Generally here we'll focus on voice acting, music, but we're always glad to hear sound effects, whatever you want to play us. As a quick introduction, I've been involved in the game industry since 1990. My first computer game I was involved with was with Viacom, actually. Came out in 92 called Dracula Unleashed. And since then I've worked on a lot of different games, generally as a designer, writer, or producer. I have my own company, Holistic Design. But one of the funnest things is actually making the noises. So I love making sound effects. I love having other people make good music for me, because that's beyond my abilities. But the sound effects, the voices, all that I really enjoy. So we're going to talk briefly about game audio and how good game audio, good game audio is and how it's created. But people who've certainly done a lot better game audio than I ever have are sitting first to my right. Nick, if you'd introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, I'm Nick Wells. I'm a sound designer for Rickwood Music. Should I tell what I've worked on?
Yeah.
Currently I'm working on Smite and Paladins, two games from Hi-Rez. And worked on Brawlhalla, a little bit of Killing Floor 2, different games like that, smaller games as well, Jetpack Fighter. So, yeah.
Yeah, always plug the people who are paying the bills.
Yeah, those guys for sure.
And to my left, I'll set this up because we just had an IGDA meeting this past weekend, and one of the leads of that meeting was looking bleary-eyed because he'd been playing the game this guy had worked on until the wee morning hours right before. So, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Lackey, and I'm the owner of Wabi Sabi Sound, and functionally I'm audio director, and at heart I'm a hardcore sound designer. So that's my main thing. I also do a lot of voices and occasionally music when I have to. But main thing is sound design. And a little bio on me. Ori and the Blind Forest came out about a year ago in March, and that was one of ours. I started working on that, I don't remember the year, but it was 4.5 years of production for me. And then this year in March, we released The Witness, which was even longer schedule, was also one of ours. So those were two projects where we own the entire audio, although with Ori, Gareth Coker was a composer. But prior to that, was a contractor on a lot of different games, Bioshock 2, lots of stuff. Dead Space Trilogy, I was in-house for the first Dead Space as their lead creature designer, and about 20 or so other games. And then before that, I was in film, and I worked on the Matrix Trilogy and a lot of other stuff as well. So all mostly in the sound design realm.
So there is a gang in game audio. It actually stands for the Game Audio Network Guild? Yeah, Game Audio Network Guild. They've been around in the game industry, I believe, longer than I have, with the Fat Man and others, dating back to the late 80s. And this is the leading organization for game audio. If you're interested in game audio, you should know about this group. And sitting to my left is one of the winners of the highest honor the game industry has for game audio, the Gang Award given out at GDC.
Yeah.
I'm just as shocked as you guys.
Not if you played Ori.
We won it for Ori this year for both Best Mix and Audio of the Year, and it was a crazy honor. And people really fell in love with the game, and it was just a wonderful experience. Yeah.
I think it's a one game award. Grand Theft Auto's never won, so you got them beaten out. And Andrew also spoke at Siege last year. Hopefully we'll have Nick speaking at Siege. Siege is the Southern Interactive Entertainment and Game Expo. It'll be October 7th to 9th in Marietta this year. The SiegeCon.net website is up, and we hope to be announcing some speakers in the not too distant future. We've had the game audio track as a key component of that since the very first year we did Siege, way back when. We're now in our 10th year, just to let you know. And the reason for that is game audio really deserves the same place in people's minds when they're producing games as game art, as game programming, as game design. We have tracks for each of those, and we feel that audio deserves its a similar place. And so do most reviewers. If you look at game reviews where they'll parcel out the points, you'll always see game audio rated equally with game art and design the other functions. So, hey, if you want to have a good review for your games, make sure you have good audio in it, because that's 20% of your grade right there. But there's a reason for that. It's not just because we have to have categories. It's because the game audio really sets the mood in a significant way for every game, every good game that's been done. And I talked before that we generally talk about the music, we talk about the sound effects, and we talk about the voice acting for all these, for the games. For me, I was going to start, I actually find the sound effects to be the hardest. If you don't mind, I was going to start with a little bit of discussion on sound effects. One of our funnest sessions was just the audience calling out ideas and slowly making a sound effect out of what the audience was coming out from. I think it all started with a Coke can being crushed or being dropped, turned into a ray gun zap by the end of it. But it's interesting how the sound effects world has changed over the years. From the first days of, we'll start with radio, with the Folio folks crushing cereal and the like for people walking, and people banging coconuts together, famously for horses. But it's always funny because our perception of what things sound like is so different from the reality. And I always love to tell the story of one of our games, Hammer the Gods. We had gotten, and I've talked about this earlier with the gentleman here, we'd gotten some very nice swords from museum replicas here. It's a Viking game. You go out and kill things and take over towns and so on and so forth. And using those weapons on anything sounded boring. It was this tink, it was this slice, and nothing interesting. So after hacking into pumpkins and watermelons forever with these swords, the sound effect you finally hear for the big sword slice is a baseball bat going into a watermelon, because it's just much more what we expect. So I'd like to go ahead and turn over to our presenters as well. You both worked on the sound effect side of it. In your mind, what makes for a good sound effect? Because we sit through and we listen to these things over and over and over, then we tweak the process and we tweak them and finally get it right. What is it that makes it a good sound effect? And what are there any secrets you can talk about mixing, adding things in to help people actually come up with good ones? And for me, the one thing I always send out is, even when it's only a 2-second sound effect, 1-second sound effect, make sure that the beginning and the end are as well set up as the big key boom in the middle. That lead in and lead out can be a critical part of whether a sound effect works.
I'll jump in. I think it's important to just note that we don't work in a vacuum, and the reason why a sound effect is good or not good is because of the context. And so before you think about what source you might use or what, where you might go to get a sound, or even before you think of, what would be the right sound, you really got to understand the project you're working on, what its aims are, what its goals are, both from an aesthetic standpoint and also a tactile, physical standpoint. So it's really important to understand things like, well, just what genre is this project in, and what is different about this project and all the other things that are in the same genre. And as you're, the reason why these things are so important is because the universe is our palette in terms of what we can pick and put in there, right? We, like you just said, we have infinite numbers of possibilities because that's just the way sound design works in a lot of ways. So in order to answer the question of what makes a sound effect effective, you really have to answer the question, why is it important for this moment in time? And are we making the very best of this moment with the selections that we've used? So it's a little hard to answer it in isolation and in a vacuum. But as you go through, like in the case of Ori, sounds that were really effective tended to have a more organic kind of feeling to them. Anything organic worked, anything electrical didn't. And that's because the general nature of that universe is organic. So anytime we deviated too much from that, it wasn't working. So you really have to be in tune. You have to spend a lot of time just really understanding what is the intention, and that's working with your collaborators, working within the genre, and understanding the history of a particular type of gameplay. So that's my roundabout way of answering that in a philosophical way.
I could throw something in there. Yeah, I'm a very analytical person, and so usually when I approach a sound, I usually analyze what it's for, what the character's for, colors, textures, materials that are made up, and that kind of helps determine. But also the context of the game is very important, and I know a lot of kind of new audio sound designers. They usually just throw sound on sound on sound, trying to make it better, but they're just making it muddier. And so you want to go for clarity and simplicity sometimes, but you need to have a context in there. Just like I was playing Ori last night, Ori and the Blind Forest. I was playing that game. That game's amazing. The audio, everything about it. The audio is fantastic. But one of the most satisfying sounds is just the basic attack. It's this charge sound. And when it hits the enemy, it's got this nice punch and impact, but it's got this nice, clear, high end. And the thing is, it works in one hit and also works a bunch of hits, one after the other. And to get that clarity is really difficult. And that's one of those sounds that just like, you got to know the context, but you can't muddy it up. Keep it simple, and don't just pile sounds on after sound, and try and keep it simple. And another thing, like there was a character I was doing called Amaterasu on Smite, and I didn't know this when I first designed the sounds. She has abilities, and she has her second ability and her fourth ability can play at the same time. And when I designed them, they both had pretty nice low end stuff. But when she played them together, when you play them together, it just became this mess. And I didn't know that because I wasn't testing it that way. I was isolating the sounds. And so I had to go back and redesign because to get some high-end clarity and take out some of that low end and the lower ability. And then when that higher ability came in, it can kind of work together. So they worked separately, but they also work together because I didn't have that low end kind of mess in there. So you got to take into account the sound. Can it stand by itself, and also can it stand with other sounds as well, and the other things that are going on in the world.
I'd like to piggyback on that, and thank you for the compliment. I'm happy to have the compliment, but the reason why that works so well is because the music, the sound of the Spirit Flame, which is the main attack, which you do 1,000 times a minute in the game, the reason why that works so well in large degree, piggybacking on what you said, is that the music has zero percussion. Zero percussion. The sound effects are the percussion of the game. So kind of, piggybacking what you said about judicious use of what you have in terms of the soundscape, taking that one piece away allowed the sound effects to have a lot more space and a lot more impact. So.
Brilliant.
That's wild. I love that idea. I can't think of any other game that has no percussion in its
We can all thank Gareth Coker for that.
Good composer, excellent composer. Yeah. But it's interesting because, as both of them have pointed out, this is a process. Game audio is a process. In film, yes, you want to understand the big picture, but your audio, your sound effects, your music will always play on this one segment of the movie. It will never deviate from that. Games, we have some control over where things are going to play, but we don't have complete control. We cannot know all the way. So you have to be very careful to make sure you're not doing things in isolation, that you know the bigger context of what they're doing. It's very interesting based on what you just said, because one of my long-standing rules for game music is you can't have anything in it that sounds like it should be part of the game. Nothing in your music should sound like it's a sound effect. If I suddenly hear a zap or a bang or a crescendo, then something had better have happened. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking around every corner for the next 5 minutes of the game expecting that to happen. And I love how you set that up. You took that out so that what was happening in the game became the music of the game.
Yeah, and that was a choice by Gareth. You know, I had nothing to do with that. He understood that as a platforming game, there was going to be a lot of sounds of just shooting enemies, jumping, using all these crazy abilities. He knew these sound effects were going to be a big part of the overall audioscape of the game. So he just basically said, you know what, that's a fight I'm not going to fight. I mean, in a more mature way. It's like, look, you know, why throw more ingredients into the salad when it's already going to be good? You know, he can go in other ways. And if you listen to him talk about what he didn't lose sight of pace and rhythm and pulse. And in fact, he calls it pulse. He did, with the rest of his compositions, he wrote in lots of rolling melodies and lots of pulsing that is not tut 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 tut. So a lot of times you hear this a lot in design, and I think it comes with maturity and studying your craft. But knowing when not to do something, knowing when to take something out is a really critical skill. It's a really important skill to learn. And again, I just always point back to that: do what's best for the project. And it's not something that's easy to do, I think, earlier on in your career. But as you get more experience, you start to have a little bit better, broader picture on what you should and shouldn't do, and risks that you can and shouldn't take. And it's also a good reason to be listening to and playing a lot of games and films as well.
And I also love the idea that percussion is user-generated content in the game. Let's go ahead and segue on into music, on the music side of it. All the games I've done, we've had music of some kind involved, and thankfully we've gotten very good reviews on our music. We've had the very soft opening music, and since I do a lot of strategy games, we want music that's not distracting, that sets the mood, and that a player is not going to kick out after 5 minutes to put in their own CDs. So we generally lean towards music that we consider less distracting and atmospheric without being overly so, and then save the big crescendos for the end game parts of it. But it's always a pleasure to work with folks to get new music made, to actually work with composer, to work with your vision and theirs, to have it come into reality. So if you two want to take that, basically the same idea before, when you've been working on music for games, when do you know it's good? What's making it good? And I mean, feel free to use examples from others as well. As loved you pegging Ori right off the bat.
That's a hard one.
How do you know when it's good? I think it's an iterative process. Please allow yourself to screw up a lot, and also, for me anyway. I mean, this is a very personal, type of thinking. Everybody's going to have their own answers to these questions, but I never really assume that what I'm doing is the last one. I have I have kind of a mental knowledge that I'm going to do this thing at least 4 times. So I'm going to try different things. I'm going to understand what the project needs, but I'm always looking to kind of further the narrative or further the experience in some interesting way. So when I feel like I've gone and kind of come from this unique position of what is really what is really necessary to further the experience or the narrative. And I've been able to satisfy the more mechanical needs of sound effects, like, yes, it's punchy, yes, it's full bandwidth, yes, it feels immersive and interesting and cool. Then I feel like, okay, I've got it to a place, you know. But then it's just very, very important to understand and honor the feedback that you get from developers or players or other sound people. I mean, I've worked on a lot. I've had the very good fortune of working on a lot of really really great sounding projects, and I take a percentage of credit for that, even very, very small a lot of times, because the thing that makes things sound really good is a lot of, in my opinion, is a lot of people giving feedback. There's a lot of people giving passion and perspective on things. That's how you get a universality around what a lot of people in a room would think is good. What I, you know, in my own, you know, studio making something think is good, sure, it's going to get to some level that a lot of people are going to think is good. But I don't think it gets to those next levels of, you know, greater than the sum of its parts without collaboration, without understanding feedback, not just hearing it, but understanding it. I have a whole thing on, it's not important what somebody says to you about the thing, it's why they said it. Why did they say this sounds too sci-fi? You know, that's interesting feedback, but it's not exactly what you need to know. So I really honor the process of creative, you know, of the iterative kind of creative team type approach, and I think particularly on projects that are very, like, types of art that are very complicated, like game making and filmmaking. These are very collaborative type arts, as opposed to, you know, making an album, which is a collaborative but a much smaller type collaborative experience. So I just, again, I answer it very nebulously again and just say that it's you know, you have to have an internal, you know, your own internal metrics, but also be very open and desiring to always make it better based on the people with feedback that you really believe.
I think that's a great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do too much of the music in games because that's kind of Chris's specialty, Chris Rickwood. But what I've noticed about his music is it's very unified. It's all in a specific game, all of his music ties together very well. And the thing is, like, there's no, you put the music out there and it's going to be right. It's always, you're going to get feedback on it, and you need to be able to work with it, because if you think it's good but everybody else doesn't, then it's not good, because it's not, doesn't fit the game developer's vision, or, you know, and so you got to be able to roll with that, absolutely. And so that's the thing. I guess you don't really know until it ships.
Right.
So.
One of our games, Emperor of the Fading Suns, is one that got a lot of praise when it came out for its music, and that was very much the collaborative process that Andy's talking about, where we had a band called the Changelings, did a lot of that music, very atmospheric band. We had a few DJs doing work as well, and there was a lot of back and forth as we talked about what we liked, what they provided us. And part of the interesting part, as the designers, we incorporated them as early as we could, but as the game changed, that meant that we were making different changes in the music we might not have earlier. Means they had some input early in the process, so if we heard something good, we thought that could fit somewhere in the game, and then as it proceeded, it would change, and I think that was probably our best soundtrack. And it was one of those where you're listening to the music, and when you suddenly become aware of the music for whatever reason, you say that was exactly right for that moment, and usually you're not aware of it at all. It's just playing along with the game. So yeah, if you're a game designer or in your game audio, think of that back and forth as quality assurance, as bug hunting, as beta testing. You are listening in to see what works, what doesn't work, and be able to give that feedback or hear what the real feedback is. Just what Andy said. That's one of the secrets of bug hunting anyway, is hear what someone is really asking for, not what they're saying. Hey, you nerfed my paladin. No, I want a richer game experience. I don't care about that one power. I want to do more. So All right, so moving on from that to a next big area, voiceovers. Voice acting has become a lot more dramatic since the Atari days, for obvious reasons. I remember Wolfenstein coming out with the Schweinhund attempt at a voice in a game. Yeah, Contra, yeah. Oh, yeah. But in this case, instead of talking about what makes for good voice acting and whatnot, I'd rather talk about the session itself. Because when we set up these VO sessions, we're locking someone in a closet for 1, 4, 6 hours, might give them a 15-minute break in that, and expecting them to really capture the soul of a character or 20 characters right off the bat. So we had, one of our games was called Multi-Coon. We brought in several voice actors for this. We knew we wanted to be over the top and cartoony. But it was one of those where we weren't really getting the sound we wanted from any of them until we finally realized that not everything was cartoony. A lot of what they were saying was informational. You're running out of money. There was a interface ding for that, but then we also wanted the voice to come in. So we either had to tone it down or move that up a notch. We had to record it every one of those ways. Your mall is out of money! Or you're running out of money. And figure out what actually worked. And finding one actor who could handle all of those well and from whom we could pull the perfect ones for each of those to give the right move ended up being one of the things that made that. We still occasionally have people talk about the voice of Multi-Coon, taunting them happily as they ran out of money. Your mall is out of money! So this is another one of those where it can change during the process. And those sessions, pulling that out of the voice actor has always been an interesting experience because it's where they have to listen to you and hear what you're saying and interpret what you're really asking from you. So can any of you talk to past sessions where you've had someone either do something or you saw something that was maybe that they shouldn't be doing and you could break it off at the right time?
I think for voice sessions, I've done a few. For voice sessions, as a producer or the director of that or something, whenever you're recording an actor, you need to go in prepared to have them do multiple takes in different ways. Because oftentimes they're going to have their interpretation of a line, but you also need to be prepared to deliver as many different ways as possible so that you don't have to bring them back in to re-record. That's time and money that no one wants to spend. And so the prep is really big in any voice session, but also being able to give direction to a voice actor is really difficult. I was actually doing dialogue for a small casino game, and I kept hearing the Cruisin' USA girl, where she does a countdown. For any of you who are that old, I don't know if. And that was the voice I was hearing, and Chris was like, "Yeah, go with that's kind of what we need," but we didn't have anybody, so I actually had my wife do it, and she's not a voice actor; she's an English teacher, so I had to give her direction, and I had to kind of perform it a little bit to give her an idea too, and gave her different ways, different inflections, pacing, stuff like that. And I think as I'm a musician, so as a musician that helped to have that kind of background. But there's also a rhythm to it, and there's inflection, there's tone, there's pitch, and that all affects the performance. And if you can't really direct or, give that direction or even take that direction as a voice actor, it's going to be really difficult. We did that, and then right after that, we did a line, almost the exact same line, but it had to be more seductive, lower in pitch, and I had to kind of act those out to show her, which was real kind of awkward. But yeah, you got to be able to kind of roll with it that way and hear different ways of doing it and be able to communicate that to the actor. And sometimes it takes practicing it by yourself. No one knows. So just, you might as well just try different ways so that you're prepared for the session to deliver that or to communicate that to the actor, and hopefully they can perform that too and kind of give their takes on that.
Nick, you're a brave man. I can't think of many people who'd want to be audio engineer for their spouse.
I've done that too. I don't have anything substantial to add to that. I think that's a really good a really good overview of that. I just echo, yeah, preparation is huge. Also, Michael Cruces gives great presentations at GDC. If you guys look him up online, he gives really great presentations on running VO sessions and ensemble sessions and all kinds of stuff like that. I do a little VO, and most of the sessions that I've directed and casted have been kind of gibberish language type projects, like Spore was one of them, and yeah, being really prepared, huge, absolutely huge, and then there's a very interesting process that goes into voice directing where you're kind of real time, working with the oar that you're given, and it's a delicate balance, and I find it pretty fun. Both going for things and pushing the boundaries a little bit, but then not getting too carried away where you're just, getting the actor, flustered or whatever. There's a really interesting kind of balance there and dance that's played. So I find that to be really fun, particularly with the crazier stuff, because I tend to direct like crazy creature stuff and, okay, I want you to be a big blue crazy thing that says, give me your money or whatever, or, in the case of Spore, it was like, okay, you're a fish-headed tribal creature and you're crying because your baby was just taken away. Like, go. Yeah.
Excellent. And for game designers out there, you have to be flexible as well. When you hear a voice actor who works, you might change things along just to fit them. When we did Star Trek Starfleet Academy, we had the original cast of the classic Star Trek in on that. So it's actually the last time Shatner has been Kirk. And you better believe you need to change dialogue on the fly if it's not fitting in those situations. And that was actually a very good experience for us. When Shatner doesn't want to deliver a line as Kirk, then yeah, it's got to change. But it's true. You fit it to the voice actor as well when you have the right voice actor for the project. So always try and be on the soundstage. Don't just leave it to all audio will handle that. The designers need to be in there too. And it should have been a process from the beginning anyway. Okay, now we're going to get to the part that everyone's actually here for, which is the game audio shootout. Do we have all of the different reels and websites up there? Or?
I believe so.
Excellent, excellent. You have one more?
Yeah, CarterGame.com.
All right, you'll be the very last one if we got time. All right. So, when our I should have had it up on my spreadsheet up here. Let me email it to me so I get it. But Paul, who's the first person signed up on that? And John actually signed up second, so it's probably whoever's under John's name. All right, who's under John's name? He's second. He snuck in after the first person did. Another John?
I mean, the first person on the list that said yes was John Clements.
John Clements, but I already told, we got him to sign up later on, yeah.
So the person after that would be Thomas.
Thomas, if you want to come on up, let us know what we're about to listen to. So this would be one. All right. And generally, there's a microphone right there. If you want to tell us very quickly what we're listening to and for. No, there's. There's not going to be any, I don't think we're going to have any video. It's just going to be audio. So.
Okay, that's fine. Man, I worked hard on that premiere video. So what you're about to listen to are two trailers that I redesigned, both music and sound for the first one, and then just the sound for the second one. The first one is The Ball, which is a game that Tripwire published. I think it was from like 2013 or something. The second one is a Mortal Kombat trailer, and that's just the sounds. Then after that is actually a demonstration of Wise, which is an audio middleware solution for interactive audio inside of games and stuff. And then after that is the same Wise project except playing inside of Unity.
And I need to warn you, we don't have a lot of time for everybody, so we'll probably cut them off as we go through and go on.
It's just like, it's like 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
So.
Excellent.
Did you do the music too?
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat 3 is like
Is this the one where they're in the forest?
Yes.
Except in Unity now.
So the bit that was in Wise and you then took it into Unity, or you redid it in Unity, was there, did that have any change in the size of the file at all when you put it into Unity?
So I don't know exactly how Wise handles that.
Uh-huh.
I know there are compression options,
Right.
but I didn't mess with that too much because it was just kind of for demonstration purposes.
Yeah, no, I thought it sounded really cool. Sounded professional. I have a really hard time listening and generating any kind of feedback without kind of context visually.
Yeah.
And the speakers not being referenced. But all that being said, yeah, it sounded like a professional level presentation, and I was interested. There was one piece that stuck out to me. I think it was in the interactive demo with the kind of it felt like ever kind of escalating pitches in terms of strings. How'd you do that?
That was actually just a pitch modulation option inside of Wise, and it's controlled by the health integer. So each time you lose a little bit of health, it increases the pitch over a given amount of time.
Cool. So you're familiar with shepherd tones?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a cool technique, and yeah, I thought it was really cool for kind of in a static, like in a looping kind of way, in a way where you don't know interactively when a tense moment is gonna end or start. You know, that you get this kind of endless amount of time where you can build, kind of have this feeling of endlessly building tension.
So that continues.
Really
That continues until you die, which is what you heard at the end with the screaming.
yeah, that's cool.
I think the beginning piece. What was that?
That was the ball trailer.
Okay. I think what the big thing that stuck out was once you kind of the trailer kind of ramps up with the music and the sounds, and you got to be careful it doesn't get cluttered.
Yeah.
Because you want to build suspense and intensity, but you don't want to make it just a mess.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need to just cut out some sounds and let the music take it, and just focus on making those sounds that you do keep in there be clean and cut through. Sometimes in trailers you'll see this, the music will come up, but when the sounds play it'll duck the music a little bit, and you can do that with sidechaining, compressors, and stuff like that. But just be careful that you're not just piling sounds and music until it's just this like goo of stuff.
I think the reason that might have happened is because I did all the sound first. So I was probably trying to like compensate for having no music.
Sometimes you just got to go simpler with that. Another thing is like the Mortal Kombat trailer. You have a part in there probably about the first half where it's just sounds, right? Get creative with it. Put delays, put different effects, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Lengthen a reverb on a big hit so it just like trails. So that way you can kind of fill space and make it more artistic. Sometimes you can even like filter out the high end on a big one and make a punch really just sit. So you can get creative with that, even though if you don't have music playing. Sometimes it'll just feel awkward if you just have like wind going. Sometimes you can get creative. It doesn't just have to be a punch sound. It could be a punch and a tail, or like a punch.
Yeah.
Or get creative with it, and you can make the trailer feel more, I don't know, a little more interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to jump on that exact same point. When you're doing this as your demo reel, I mean, that all sounds great. That's stuff I want my games to sound like. But if I'm the producer looking for an artist, I'm hearing too much of the sound. I'm hearing that celery stalk cracking again and again. I want to hear more variety of what you can do. The second song was an excellent example. It's what I want my game to sound like starting or ending, but I want to be able to also visualize my own game. I'm hearing too many of the sound effects in there for me as a producer. I want to be able to picture or hear my own game overlaid with what you're showing me. That's taking over. It's a great piece, but as part of the demo reel, I'd also want something that I can feel, I can project my own game on more easily.
Exaggerated, a little more exaggerated.
All right. So thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you.
All right, John Clement, you want to go up for number 2? What's the name of your file? What are we pulling up? He's got it back here. What are we looking for? And while we're doing that, Nick, by the way, had never met the guy he's working for before until he went to one of our events here at AIA when he was an AIA student.
Yep.
So for you AIA students, the ones who aren't here are the ones who lost out.
Yep.
All right, John, what are we about to listen to?
Okay, I am not a voice actor. I just do this for fun. I'm a professional fight consultant and professional fight instructor. I'm an internationally known weapons expert. So if you like this, great. If you don't like this, did I mention I'm a fight instructor? After years of people suggesting over and over that I can do a lot of voices and a lot of characters, and what I do is I do a lot of history. I'm a historian, so I like voices from different cultures and different periods in history and different ethnicities. And you all are the experts really on this because you listen to more voice acting in your games. You use voice acting in your games. On the talent side, talent is a dime a dozen, really. The creative people are the ones who are the gems. So if you listen to this, it's more the breadth of the variety of voices. This is only about a third of the voices that I do, the characters I can do. And again, I just threw this together about 2 months ago, so it's a first attempt to create a sample. And so here goes.
Hi, I'm John Clements, and here are a few samples of my character voices.
I'll tell you what, folks come around here too often to know their own business. Long ago, the ancients taught many secrets.
Oh, yep, that's where I'm going, and I don't need no help from no one.
Well, at this time, we are not accepting any new applicants for this position.
Long ago, my friend, it was foretold that 3 would come who would perceive the ancient signs
What, you want a piece of me? You think you can do something better?
Huh? I really don't even know what we're doing here. I mean, come on, we've been here for at least 3 hours. When are we gonna know something?
Come here, my friend. You will not find better items than these. Let me assure you, these are the best.
Oh, damn it! That's what it is.
Upon a time when I was a young man, I would go to the village, and many strangers would approach me to seek my blessing.
My latest invention will enable all the children of the world to eat all the candy they wish.
Hey man, do you want to buy my bike? I sell it to you. Do you like it?
Yeah, folks around here like to have a little snack once in a while.
You're very funny, round eye, but China soon dominate world. China own the moon.
Them say, no go near river, no go no further. That bad voodoo.
Dude, like, where's my car, man? Like, my parents got it for me, and it's like totally awesome.
Samurai, learn, the spirit of the soul of a samurai is in his sword, but the toes of the samurai are on his feet. Wasn't long ago that folks in America were learning to drive.
Soon, all those who sought to imprison me shall feel my wrath.
You've been living in rural Georgia too long.
What's your recording setup?
Mac and the microphone just.
Yeah, so that's the first thing.
Yeah.
This anymore, to even if you're amazing, even if you're James Earl Jones, your demo's got to be through a pro mic, and they're not that expensive.
Okay.
Budget $200 and get something, and some basic knowledge of compression. You know, of how to set up a voiceover signal processing chain.
Compression.
Yeah, so you'll just have to educate yourself on this. Yeah. So
YouTube different.
So
like
the days
swords.
of a voice actor showing up at a studio and recording their lines, they're not gone. But especially when you're kind of getting into the business, you might very well be doing a lot of your own voice work in your own home studio.
Nice.
So and especially just getting your demos done. People need to hear what you sound like on a quality mic, in a professional-esque. Now, there's some leeway. You don't have to sound like you're in a $1 million studio, but you do need to, if you're pursuing this professionally, get a good setup. And there's plenty of resources out there. As far as the characters, I thought they were very interesting. You're reading with a lot of passion, and I think that's a key thing. What you said about voiceover. Dime a dozen, you guys are the artists, well, sound designers and composers are a dime a dozen as well. So what differentiates these, people, I feel like, is experience, which you just have to work on to get, but also there are ways in which your background are going to make you, and your passions are going to make you different than the rest of the options. And all of your, the things that you are passionate about the fighting, about the history, like when I'm looking for a voice actor, it's a huge bonus if they have some background in the subject matter. It's huge. Worked on a game called The Witness, which has a lot of voice acting in it, and we really tried very hard to find actors who could handle the material, which was very philosophical and scientific at the same time, but deliver professional type, a believable but professional type voiceover experience. So I would just, if you're, the goofy, funny voices are definitely needed, but also give a little bit of how you can read more serious rules that pertain to your passion, because I think that would, as somebody who's listening to a demo reel and I'm looking for maybe something more serious and with a historical context, theoretically I should hear more of that authority in your voice.
What I was hearing was, again, the audio setup thing. If you're not recording through a quality setup, at least a decent quality setup, some of the performance doesn't carry through. Like some of the low end can be lost, which on some of the characters you're trying to go for a wiser, kind of deeper, but you can't hear it because a lot of it was distorted. And so, just seriously, YouTube, you can figure out what compression is, how to get a good setup and not distort your audio. I think something for your reel that you need to do is be able to change the pace of your characters, because it all just felt like this the whole time. You're at this one pace the whole time, and you need to be able to slow down some of these characters. Some of the deeper ones, the lower ones, sometimes they should slow down. You should change up the rhythm, because it seemed like you're just hitting these lines and just going and going. Sometimes you just need to slow it down. Another thing to work on is I hear a lot of throat, and I hear a lot of kind of nasal and head voice. Try to push from the diaphragm a little bit more, and you're going to get more low end and more deeper and wiser feel. Slow it down some, and that way you can expand your character set, and some of these characters won't sound the same. They'll sound different. So being able to change the pitch, the deepness, and I mean, we can do some of that as audio guys, but the better your performance can be, the more like the raw it is, and it sounds good raw, the less we have to do, and the better performance is going to sound. I process a lot of audio for Spite, a lot of dialogue, and so that's some of the things we go through. Sometimes the actor doesn't sound as formidable and big and impactful, and so we have to kind of lower their pitch or change the format. And so if you can deliver that as a voice actor, your repeatability to be brought in for more characters goes way up. So pace things out, change your rhythms a little bit, try and change your pitches, go for the voice deep. Sometimes you have to change your body posture to do some of that stuff. And so, just think about those different things. And that'll definitely boost your reel and get you better roles in different roles.
Great.
Thanks, John.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Advice.
Oh, who do we have next?
Next is Sam Cade.
Sam, what are we about to listen to? If you grab that mic, let him know which one to play. And for anyone who's doing VO, remember that at least half your lines will be informational. We need to know, even when you're being hit, we need to know that hit, that level of the hit, how much damage is actually coming off. We need those audio clues as gamers.
Hey, so I have, I'm a composer. I have, kind of quick little playlist of several compositions, not the whole thing, but kind of the meat of 4 different styles. The first one being kind of a synth-driven music that you might have for like a racing game or a sci-fi type, setting. The second track being music that I actually took from a jam band, chopped it up and remixed it and turned it into something else. And I kind of saw this as something that would go for like a Splatoon kind of shoot 'em up, kind of maybe even kid-friendly kind of fun game. Track number 3 is more strings, something you might have for a fantasy type game. And track 4 is just very ambient, but also have it's a mixture of synthesizers and a interesting acoustic instrument that I have. So this might be like for a big scene in a long fantasy game or a kind of wide open scene.
About how long are they?
Maybe just under a minute each.
Okay.
think we cleared the minute mark on that one.
You gonna pause that one?
Yeah, I'll go first. I definitely favored the last three. The first one wasn't working for me so much, but I could hear any one of the four having some type of basis that would eventually be in games. I think the main critique I would have is that I want to feel like I'm in a journey of some sort, and I felt like the kind of kernel of what you're doing in all four of the pieces was interesting. I think you're picking really interesting instrumentation and sounds, and they're instruments that complement each other well. But I felt like all four of them were staying sort of in a fairly narrow emotional range. And whenever you compose for picture in particular, you got to be prepared for the fact that the player's they're gonna have triumphant moments, and they're gonna have moments of absolute despair and and death. So with all of the pieces, I would encourage you to kind of explore what that would mean within the the phrasing and the melodies and the instrumentation you're using, and then with game composing. There's some types of game composing where you don't need to necessarily have like an idea of how you're going to interactively work with the music, but are these composed with layers or any sort of like interactivity in mind?
The second one was basically to where something like a Wise program you could bring in the intensity.
Go and speak it on mic if you would.
You could, the second composition, the one with the kind of bass guitar and the jam band, you could add layers as the, characters getting into more fights or, racing downhill faster or whatever the case may be.
Well, cool. That's a very important skill. I think it's obviously super important for game composing to have that skill, because you need to compose. I'm not a game composer, but I'm going to say, but you do need to be able to compose with in mind the mechanics of how your composition is going to work in the end. So I definitely would encourage you with all of your pieces to be thinking that way of like, how can we have these emotional and textural changes so we're supporting gameplay.
Yeah, that exact thing. I was thinking the same thing. It seemed like you started with a really good idea and then you just layered on top of that. And so, and another thing that I'm guessing you're not a percussionist or a drummer.
No.
All right. Because a lot of the drum things were very simple, or sometimes you didn't even have any percussion stuff. So you can really mix in some of that and create another layer or texture in there. But something that would be very impressive is like take each one of those, take a minute, and see if you can transpose to a minor, or go from major to a minor, minor to major, or even modulate to a different key, or be very dynamic with it. That would be very, very impressive, because like oftentimes games, when they move, when something bad happens, it'll modulate to a minor, or go to a minor key, or maybe a drum layer will shift in there, and so you got to be able to, if you can show you can do that, layer in those different things, or trade off the melody to a different instrument, because that's one thing that it like you were saying, it felt very emotionally the same through the whole thing. So if you can trade that off and like take the listener on a journey, throw the melody to a different instrument, like play the melody on one instrument, change it to a different instrument, go an octave higher and play both at the same time, go to a minor key. If you can do that within a minute or 2 minutes or something, it shows you're versatile and you can make those changes, because those are hard things. But in video games, there's a lot of space to fill sometimes, and you got to be able to do that, show that you can do that, right in those different keys and modulate.
And as a producer, I know exactly when on a SoundCloud file I'm going on to the next one.
Yeah.
So the more you can do those very minor things to keep me listening to you, the more likely I'm getting that contract to you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. We have now hit 8 o'clock. Are folks up for 2 more? All right. Who's next, Paul?
Ollie Stevens.
Okay. Got a cheering section out there, Holly. Does he? Do they have what you've got?
I hope so. I hope they don't play. Yeah, it should have my name on it. Phew. Hey there.
Hello, Holly.
Hello. This is an animation demo. Since then, I've done a number of games, and that's my next project is to create my gaming demo, but I have narration and commercial in that. But this is the animation, and it's pretty heightened cartoon characters, and I based it on a lot of classic cartoons, and you'll hear it. Okay. It's about a minute.
Holly Stevenson, beloved by all who know her. Come on! Let's trip the light fantastic. Watch this. Enter a world of sensation. Here, fishy, fishy, fishy. I'm packing you an extra pair of shoes and your angry eyes. I love you. I'll smash it with a hammer! That's Miss Captain Skipper thingy to you. What are you doing on my belt?
Now get this through your thick plaza, you fine nightskirt. Playtime is over.
You just sneak up in front of them and then honk. Tractors are so dumb. That's for kidnapping me. That's for everything else. I guess so. Oh, you guess? Love is so complicated.
I was entertained, which is like probably the biggest, thumbs up I can give. It was just, it was fun. There's a lot of different things to listen to. It was different styles, comedic. You mixed it up well. And I also just really bought into, even without you having said it, I would have had this comment of like, an older style animation, a Hanna-Barbera, Popeye, going back, older, even kind of Disney. So yeah, congratulations on all that. I thought it was really good. I think sprinkling in the sound effects was a good move as well. It helps. It helps with context and I think using this as an example to the earlier VO demo, I think you can, you showed a lot of different styles. It's paced out in a way that I felt like I could hear everything, and yet you did stay within the, kind of the more, there was a few more kind of true to life voices in there. I would say maybe some of those could have been a little bit longer, but I felt like your pacing was really good in there, and then I could hear stuff, and then if I needed to go back and hear something, I could have, to the point where I'd be like, okay, I think I'm kind of hearing that voice. Let's give her, a full line or a few lines to read. So yeah, I thought there was definitely enough there that if I felt like you kind of fit one of those characters, I would, if I had a line for one of those characters, I would have been interested.
Well, I have a 2.5 minute demo, so this was just the minute, because a lot of people just want a minute. So
Sure. No,
yeah.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
I think you showed a great range in that minute. Within that 1 minute, that was a wide gamut, which I'm always very happy. And I think one thing you saw everyone in the audience was ready for the next one to come when it
Yeah.
ended, which is the best way to leave somebody. Wait, what else?
I think the only thing that I would add, absolutely, is a great demo. I really like the voices. The characters were very believable. Adding just a little more characteristic to maybe one or two of them, like the very first one. Could you play the very first one? Like lengthen the words, so it's like almost like a soothsayer type.
Holly Stevenson, beloved by all who know.
Beloved by all who. So you lengthen it, you give it a character, you give it this, so that way you can kind of, it almost visual comes with that. You can kind of see she's kind of, raggedy, and she's wearing this robe, and so doing stuff like that. It's like Porky Pig. One of the most, iconic things is that stutter. It's not even specifically what he says, but that stutter. Foghorn Leghorn, same thing, Bugs Bunny. So it's not really what he says, but it's just how he says it.
Yeah.
So just that little bit of character on some of these voices can make you, stand out among,
And another advantage of that is it helps to broaden your range even more. I mean, I as a producer, if I only got a limited budget, I need one person to do 20 voices, I love to hear something this different from this different from so on throughout.
Character, texture, all those voices. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Great demo.
Thank you. All right, who's our last victim? I apologize for those of you that we couldn't fit in tonight, but come and chat with us after anyway.
Hello. This is basically like the last demo. It's a character demo. It's not specifically geared towards video games. I am looking to do that though, so any bits and pieces that you like or don't like that could go with that would be great.
Bonjour, y'all. That means hello. I got the coolest dance floor for this party. It's got like glitter inside of it. It's going to be awesome. You should come. You're like totally invited. Everyone's invited. Bring your friends. Bring your pets. Bring it all.
This forest, it's so scary. Oh, I want to go home. Hey, Jungle Pal. I alerted your safety team and they agree that things are serious. Help is on the way. And once we don't government, run them into a false sense of security and then sway the rump of their hearts until they're nothing but worthless husks.
That is my daughter. Now join me in evil laughter. Could you stop that freaking noise? I'm trying to concentrate on my music.
Hey there, fans. Are you excited about Dumpy Concert? I know I am. I hope to see you in October. Meow! I'm so hungry. Can you count how many fish I have to eat? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yummy!
Those furry freaks will be itching for mercy when I unleash my army of bees.
But now we are safe. The demon's reach into this world has been halted. You will find no more servants here.
Yeah, a lot of promise there, and I think that you're probably somewhere between the demo we just heard and the prior one. I felt like the main critique I'd give is I felt like articulation was lost in the words, and I'm not a voiceover actor that does this kind of thing. That must be the hardest thing to do, is both be totally goofy and crazy, but at the same time have your words completely articulated. I mean, much to my chagrin, the voice has got to be heard all the time, every single word. So it doesn't matter what sound effect I do, what musical thing, and what performance there is. If the word is not heard, then it's kind of a lost, it just doesn't work. So there's a lot of places, and again, it could be the speakers, but there's a lot of places in there where I felt like I just lost what was going on, like from the words, from the word standpoint.
It's probably a little bit of both.
Uh-huh.
The speakers were kind of bad, but it's probably a little bit of both,
Yeah.
depending on the character especially.
Yeah, so I still think, because unfortunately in audio as well, we have to basically just accept that a large number of people are listening to our stuff on total crap.
Yeah.
So even still, I think I wanted to hear more articulation, and maybe that's slowing it down a little bit, or just working on technique to articulate the words a little bit more. It might even be more of a conscious thing of just, I know when I do a little bit of voiceover that sometimes I just have to be ridiculous with the amount of like articulation I do, because a lot of the stuff I do, like I'm doing a character now, it's a helicopter pilot that's rescuing people on an island, and so there's a lot of like noise on it and like distortion on the effect because it's through radio. But like in order to get it articulated, I have to be ridiculously like say the words as articulated as possible, kind of thing. So just want to that would be my main note. But Overall, you've got some talent. I would encourage you to keep going. The crazier, kookier, squeakier characters are definitely something that's needed, but I would also show more range, and I'll pass it on that. I think you could have showed more range in it.
Yeah.
I was already inspired by the idea of putting more realistic things toward the front. So when I do redo it, I'm definitely going to head in that direction.
Yeah, I think some of the kind of the not cartoony voices, like the cartoony voices were great. I thought they were good. Again, articulation through it. I know that sometimes you get focused on the performance rather than the technique. So that's one thing to work on, even if it means slowing it down a little bit sometimes. But the kind of regular range voices probably needs a little bit more work. Just needs a little more color to it. Needs a little more something. But yeah, articulation is a big thing. I mean, there are some things that can help, like the green apple trick if you've got a lot of saliva in your mouth, or like some voice actors use alkali, not alcohol. Sometimes they use alcohol, but alkali is another one that helps to kind of keep the vocal cords in good shape. But stuff like that might help. But you got to practice that articulation too. That's key. That's huge, because when you got sound effects going and music going and stuff like that, sometimes the words will get just jumbled up in there. So, yeah, just articulation. Articulation is a big thing that I heard.
And it's very interesting that in the game industry, we went from putting our files on very small media, so who remembers 5 1/4s or 3.5 inch floppies. We had to really put stuff in, so there was very limited room for audio. Then suddenly we got CDs and DVDs, we put tons in and do whatever we wanted. Then we're back to mobile and DLC. And now, once again, we're back to the stage where every audio file on there is space that could have been used for art, for, more characters, anything. So there really is a fight for space in the memory, again, that we'd gotten away from. So when I said before that most of the VO is going to be informational. There's going to be something that might be a clue, might be even just a clue to how that character is doing at that moment if someone's not looking at the health bar or whatever. So it is very important that it be clear, no matter how goofy the voices. Smite has some crazy voices.
Oh man, they do.
In place, but everything... They've been very good about everything really kind of having a meeting. If you're not looking at something, you're getting an audio signal for what's happening. If you're not looking at it, they're duplicating it here, there, and everywhere.
It's difficult because they have player-controlled dialogue that can be queued up by the player, and there's, for each character, they've got 160 lines of dialogue, and some of it's game-triggered, some of it's player-triggered, and you got 10 players on a match. It can get kind of crazy, and so you just got to be able to articulate, and they got to be able to understand. Yeah, it has to be understood. So that's the biggest thing. But you have some great characters,
and Smite is doing a whole lot of voices with a whole lot of local talent. So there's a lot of there's growing room for VO in games in this state. Mm-hmm. But thank you, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
thank you guys.
So again, I'd like to thank Nick Wells on my right, some great commentary and great feedback. Andrew, again, wonderful. And thanks to all of you for showing up in Hartford, Atlanta. Our next Georgia Game Developers Association meeting is the second Tuesday in May at Friendly Human with Dragon Army. See you all then.
All right.
Good stuff, Nick. I really appreciate it.